evening, everyone. This is the June 18th, 2026 regular Glencoe Village Board meeting. I want to call the meeting to order. Let's have a roll call.
Trustee Hallwax?
Here.
Trustee Mealopoulos?
Here.
Trustee Onderdonk? Here. Trustee Rosenblatt?
Here.
Trustee Rubin? Here. Trustee Scott?
Here.
And President Rowan.
Here. So we're all here. We are live streaming this meeting on the village's website tonight, and the video recording will be available on our YouTube channel. We've circulated previously minutes for the May 21 regular village board meeting and committee of the whole. They've been circulated to the community as well. Is there a motion, unless there are comments, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Is there, did we?
Had a motion and a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Okay. Next item on the agenda is public comment. This is where we allow members of the public to address the village board on a topic that is within our purview and jurisdiction, but is not listed in another location on the agenda. If you want to speak about a matter that is on the agenda, we'll ask you to wait until that matter is called, and you can speak then. If your matter is on the consent agenda, but you want to talk about it, please let us know, and we'll remove it from the consent agenda. If anyone wants to speak, you should fill out a written speaker form, which is located at the back of this room, and submit it to the village manager. He's right here. Public comment time is intended as an opportunity for you to make comments to the village board. We'll listen to everything you have to say, but ordinarily we will not be discussing or engaging with that issue. If it's appropriate, we may ask the village manager or village staff to respond to questions or issues raised later. All speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. We're not kidding. To be fair to all, we're going to strictly enforce this rule. Per our established policy, we're going to limit all public comment to a total of 30 minutes. We ask all speakers to be respectful, civil, and non-repetitive, and we ask that all members of the audience refrain from applauding or making any other comments during or after any speaker. Okay, with that in mind, are there any public comments on non-agenda items? Okay. Mr. Shapek, come on up. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Shapek, and I live on Longwood Avenue. I want to start by acknowledging something on the record. I've been communicating directly with village staff on the lakefront corridor. The village manager replied promptly and thoughtfully, and we agreed to walk the corridor together with his team. That's been constructive. So what I'm about to ask isn't a complaint about staff. It's a policy question only this board can answer. The May 21 staff report is thorough. It documents the problem clearly. What it does not do is answer the question this board has to answer. Should Glencoe's residential streets and lakefront park function as free seasonal parking for regional recreational users while Glencoe residents can't reach their own lakefront? Yes or no? Everything else, signage, fines, enforcement hours, is a downstream of that decision. The village's own numbers establish the stakes. This area is 2.88% of Glencoe's parcels, yet draws 8% of all public safety activity, and even setting aside self-initiated premise checks, staff's own count leaves more than 2,000 incidents here. In 2025, a driver accelerated while maneuvering in a parking space and struck several pedestrians, minor injuries, but no longer hypothetical. And staff admits in writing that fire and ambulance access may be compromised at peak times. The long-term answer, resident priority parking, has been deferred because the village's own permit system isn't scheduled until May of 27. That's a village timeline. The village said it, the village can change it. And the task force you're considering, working with Glencoe Park District Board to study the question this fall, doesn't change the question in front of you tonight, yes or no. Meanwhile, our adjacent North Shore communities already manage this. Kenilworth, the comparator staff itself chose, enforces resident-only parking east of Sheridan with physical stickers. Glencoe's the outlier because it has chosen not to manage the question at all. So I'd ask the board to do 3 things. Direct staff to run a weekend occupancy study at the Metro commuter lots over the remaining peak weekends. We were told by staff that the lots fill midweek with commuters, but the beach fills on weekends. Before the village claims these lots can absorb overflow, it should have the data and set a baseline now for the lakefront area, vehicle volume, citations, blocked access incidents. At the May 21 meeting, staff committed to a report at the end of the season, but a report with no baseline to compare against it isn't measurement. It's a story told after the fact. The May 21 measures are operating this season unmeasured, and once peak passes, the data is gone. 2, the beach closes September 8th for construction and doesn't reopen until May 27. That's build time. Ask staff in writing what it would take to have resident priority parking ready for the reopening, and don't treat that date as fixed. And lastly, commission an independent traffic and emergency access review of the lakefront park and adjacent residential streets. An outside engineer, not another internal memo. Staff has already documented compromised emergency access. That review is overdue. I'm grateful for the collaboration with village staff, but this decision is yours. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other public comments on non-agenda items? Okay. The next item on our agenda is reports of committees. The first report is the Committee of the Whole, which I'm going to do. We had the Committee of the Whole meeting downstairs. It concluded a few minutes ago. And we had reports from each of the boards and commissions, the Public Safety Commission, reports on what they've done for the last year and looking forward. We had reports from the chair of the Public Safety Commission. We had a report from the chair of the Plan Commission, the chair of the Council for Inclusion and Community, the chair of the Preservation Commission, the 2 staff liaisons to the Zoning Board and the Zoning Commission, the chair of the Sustainability Task Force, and the staff liaison to the Tree Commission. That's what we did at the Committee of the Whole. Next item is a report of the Finance Committee, and I'll ask Trustee Rubin to report on that.
Thank you. At Tuesday's Finance Committee meeting, we discussed the calendar year 2025 audit with our auditors, who are here to present again tonight. We also discussed the annual actuarial reports concerning our public safety pension plans with our actuaries. These reports determine the village's required contribution to the public safety pension plans. We'll see a slight increase in our contribution this year, which was not unexpected, and is in keeping with the village's funding policy. Of course, the committee also discussed the monthly financial reports for the month of May. General fund revenue performance exceeded both the monthly budget targets and prior year receipts for several revenue sources, including sales tax. We also discussed the property tax receipts for the second installment bills from last year, and we've collected approximately 45.3% of this year's levy through the end of May. We've also been notified, as you probably have all read in the press, that the second installment bills for this year are anticipated to be 2 months late. Staff is planning accordingly so that our cash flows are covered during the delay in receipts. We are fortunate in that regard, and it's one of the reasons we run the place conservatively and make sure that we have the savings in our accounts to take care of just such circumstances. The committee also discussed the issuance of Series 2026 General Obligation Bonds in accordance with the approved calendar year 2026 budget and the village's 10-year Community Investment Program financing plan. That too is on tonight's agenda for approval. The village is pleased to have our AAA bond rating reaffirmed on this issue. And the issue, as I understand it, has sold, assuming approval tonight, at below 4% on our bonds. The Finance Committee also discussed updates to the calendar year 2026 Community Investment Plan, including changes to the timelines for several projects that were planned for this year, and a comprehensive update on the golf club project. And in that, I want to note that the committee is very grateful for all of the fundraising efforts of the Friends of the Glencoe Golf Club to support this project. The committee was informed that the Friends will be forwarding their first donation towards the project this week, which will be in the amount of $350,000. We are truly appreciative. And that's our report.
Thanks very much for that report. The next report is the Plan Commission, and the village board's representative on that is Trustee Mihalopoulos. Georgia.
Thank you, President Rowan. At our May 27th meeting, the Plan Commission approved exterior appearance review for a new fence enclosing a parking area to the west of the townhomes at 371 Hazel, behind the Savin Dental Office Building. This fencing is intended to help screen cars and mechanical equipment and to partially screen dumpsters on neighboring properties. At the same meeting, the Commission deferred a decision on exterior appearance review for Club 5 Health at 63 Green Bay Road, which is the former Walgreens space in Harbor Woods Plaza. The applicant proposed facade changes and new signage on both the Scott and parking lot facades. We directed the applicant to prepare color alternatives for the parking lot facade and to review the proposed signage. This review will continue at our upcoming June 24th meeting. Thank you.
Thanks for that report. The next report is the Golf Advisory Committee, and Trustee Hallwex is the village board's representative on that.
Thank you, President Rowan. And if anybody here has not been to the course lately, please go see it. The new building is coming along. It looks fantastic, and the feedback and the buzz around the course is really strong. The golf course exceeded revenue budget for May by 17%, despite lower than average temperatures. The weekend permanent tee time program began with a record-breaking 216 members. Staff has been working with the architects and project managers to finalize the power plant, security, and AV points in the new clubhouse. 2 new members were welcomed to the Golf Advisory Committee, Jeff Bromwich and Edward Solomon, who will serve 4-year terms. And again, thinking if you haven't been, it's a great time to go buy a Father's Day gift. The new swag in the clubhouse is outstanding. So please come visit the golf course. And the next meeting will be held on July 20th.
Thanks for that report. The next 2 reports, the Preservation Commission and the Tree Commission. The village board's representative on that is Trustee Onderdunk, so take it away.
Thank you. First, let's take a look at the Preservation Commission. They met on June 2nd. They continued their work on the rollout of the village's Preservation Incentive Program. The Commission reviewed a draft communication plan this leads to the program's implementation on January 1st, 2027. We also looked at providing feedback on a draft outreach letter that will be sent to owners of designated landmark properties, informing them of the new incentive program. Outreach letters will also be sent to owners of historically significant properties, encouraging their consideration of a landmark designation. In addition, the Commission also received an update on the Preservation Lecture Series hosted in partnership with the Glencoe Public Library. By the way, the next one, I believe, is on at 7 p.m. In July 7th. Finally, the Commission discussed a demolition permit application for 1125 Holzfelter Road. As the property is not a designated landmark, no formal action was taken. The next meeting will be on July 7th. Shall I continue? Okay. The Tree Commission meets every other month, and the most recent meeting was on June 10th. The Commission received updates regarding the 2027 Green Bay Trail Project, the spring tree planting efforts, the spring buckthorn curbside collection program, buckthorn removal and restoration activities. They also looked at the Forest Edge Tree Planting Plan and implementation of the Sustainability Action Plan. Information was shared about the recently planted memorial tree, a white oak at the train station commemorating the United States 250th birthday, which will be celebrated on July 4th. Forestry Supervisor Robert Waring provided an update on oak tree diseases throughout the village. The commission also discussed the planned tree preservation ordinance updates that we'll be looking at this fall, as well as the village's approach to pear trees, which in some areas are defined as an invasive species. The commission reviewed reports on recent tree removal and also discussed upcoming educational and outreach efforts. The Tree of the Year program will continue, and a tree giveaway is planned at the Friends of the Green Bay Trail event on July 25th. Next meeting is August 10th.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
those two reports. The next report is the Sustainability Task Force, and Trustee Rosenblatt is our representative on that.
Thank you, President Rowan. Sustainability Task Force met on May 26th. Unfortunately, a quorum was not present, but the task force did get some updates from the staff on 3 topics. One was the spring buckthorn curbside collection program, which collected about 107 cubic yards of what would be buckthorn mulch when it was all mulched down. We also learned about the EV charging station construction outside Village Hall, and there's a new paper shredding station at the Takeoff Center, which is available for Glencoe businesses and residents, which allows the residents to deposit documents to be shredded later. Placing shredded documents in our recycle bins clogs the recycle bin process. The task force and its members chatted about the action plan and provide input on the framework of the plan. The group coordinated volunteer efforts for upcoming events such as the Friends of the Green Bay Trail Day on July 25th and the annual stargazing event set for November 5th at the golf course. The task force also reviewed its communication plan and developed content topics for June and July social media posts focusing on education, including reminders to our residents regarding the coal tar ban approved by the village board last year, recycling opportunities, and sustainable practices for landscaping and irrigation. The next meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday, June 27th.
Thanks for that report. The next and really the last report of our commissions is the Council for Inclusion and Community, and Trustee Scott is our representative on that. Trustee Scott.
Thank you, President Rowan. There was no meeting of the Glencoe Council for Inclusion and Community in June, so there is no report. The council will meet again on July 6th.
Thanks very much. Okay, that concludes the reports of committees. Next item on the agenda is reports of officers, and first, the village manager's report. Village Manager Corrali.
Thank you, President Rowan. Good evening to the village board and to all of you watching this evening. The first item on the manager's report is the presentation and acceptance of the draft, or of the annual comprehensive financial report and management letter from Lauterbach and Amon for the calendar year, which ended December 31st. Our auditing firm, Lauterbach and Amon, is here. They're represented by Joe Loudent, who is a principal at LNA. He is going to walk us through this briefly, and we can certainly open it up for any questions that the board may have at the conclusion of his presentation. Hi there. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening. As introduced, my name is Joe Loudent. I'm an audit principal at Lauterbach and Amon. I'm here on their behalf tonight to present to you your final deliverables for your 2025 annual financial audit. Tonight I'll be presenting on 3 pieces of required communication, but before I get to that, I want to make sure I thank the entire team out here, Nikki and Margaret both here this evening, for all their hard work during the course of the audit process. It's no easy task getting to the point where we're at this evening, where we are presenting the final product. Takes a lot of hard work, extra effort, so just on behalf of Lauterbach and Amon, thank you very much. As I mentioned, I'll be providing context regarding the 3 final deliverables. The first is going to be your SAS 114 letter. The SAS 114 letter is issued in accordance with Statement on Auditing Standard 114, in which we are required to disclose any disagreements that occurred with management during the course of the audit process. Happy to summarize this document, and in conclusion, it states that we did not have any disagreements this year. Following that is going to be the village's annual comprehensive financial report. Page 7, you'll find the Certificate of Achievement Award. I just want to point out that this is the village's 40th year in a row earning this award. For a little bit of background knowledge, this award is issued in arrears. So the award that was issued this year was for December 31st, 2024. The Certificate of Achievement Award is issued for financial reporting excellency, in which the village is required to include more detailed financial statements, a transmittal letter, and additional statistics in the back of the report. Once again, just goes to show the detail that the team out here takes. And once again, congratulations on earning this award. We did work alongside the village's team to submit for 2025's audit, and hopefully we'll be hearing some good news during the course of this year on the award for that. On page 10, you'll find the independent auditor's report. In this section of the document, you'll find a few different things. You'll find management's responsibility as it relates to the financial statements, which is to prepare them. After that, you'll find the auditor's responsibility, which is to generate an opinion on those financial statements. As you read through this, you'll find that we perform different versions of testing, as well as some internal control evaluation, but I just want to preface that our opinion is on the assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. And following that, you'll find our opinion for fiscal year 25, which is unmodified, and that is the cleanest and highest form of assurance that we can provide to the village. Next, you'll find the management's discussion and analysis starting on page 14. I highly recommend spending the majority of your time here, as it does a great job of summarizing the financial activity that occurred during the course of the year. Your team out here spent a lot of time putting together the narrative fashion of it. There's some nice charts and graphs in there that just make it a bit easier to read than the dense financial statements that follow it. And then I just want to hit on a few brief financial statement highlights. On page 33, you'll find your governmental fund balance sheet. And focusing mainly on the general fund, you ended with net assets of $34.5 million, liabilities of $19.3 million, leaving you with an ending fund balance of approximately $15.2 million, and of that, 92% of that is unassigned. On page 35, you'll find your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for your governmental funds, or otherwise known as your governmental fund income statement. And once again, focusing on the general fund, your revenues ended at $26.1 million. Your expenditures ended at $27.6 million, leaving your net change in fund balance of an approximate decrease of $1.97 million with a 13% decrease. On page 39, you'll then find your enterprise fund income statement. You'll find your water fund's net position increased approximately $826,000 this year. And then your golf club's net position increased by approximately $5.9 million this year, once again stemming from the large golf club project that was ongoing this year. Your notes to the financial statements start on page 43, and I'll briefly go over what each note holds. Note 1 to the financial statements holds your summary of significant accounting policies. Note 2 holds budgetary information. Note 3 holds capital assets and long-term debt. And note 4 holds all your other information, which does include your actuarial data, which is your IMRF, other post-employment benefits, and both police and fire pension. And then a few other things to note in the back of the report. You'll find your budget to actual figures starting on page 108. And then you'll find the statistics section starting on page 136. And then the last document I'm going to be presenting on this evening is going to be the village's management letter. And I just want to preface that our management letter is just a listing of best practice or any upcoming GASB pronouncements. You'll find in the letter we had one current recommendation for IT security awareness and monitoring of emerging risks. Want to preface that we have been distributing this comment to all of our clients at this point, just bringing awareness to the ongoing IT security issues that are going on in the world and just making sure that the village is aware of those. And in there, you'll note that management had a very thorough response with all the security that goes on at the village. And then you'll note that there are 3 prior recommendations that have all been implemented and will be removed, one for funds over budget, one for deficit net position, and one for collateralization of deposits. And those will be no longer in the management letter moving forward. And then the last page of this document includes 2 upcoming GASB standards, GASB number 103 for financial reporting model improvements, and GASB number 104 for disclosure of certain capital assets, both with implementation dates of December 31st, 2026. And we'll work alongside the team out here to implement those this upcoming calendar year. That'll conclude my portion of the presentation this evening. Happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Anyone have any questions? Let me just say, for the benefit of the audience and people watching, if we don't have questions, it's not because we're uninterested in our finances. We had a very lengthy meeting on Tuesday, Finance Committee, where we went through all of this. So we've already asked our questions. And of course, based on listening to the presentation, there aren't a lot of questions to ask because we have a pretty clear financial statement, and the audit found that we're in good stead. Okay, thanks very much.
I just want to say thank you to Joe and to the Lauterbach and Amon team for their work on this. This is a difficult and lengthy process, and when you see the paper that they go through, most of which is digital at this point, it's a lot that is undertaken, but particularly thanks to also our team, as Joe mentioned, to Nikki, our Chief Financial Officer, Deputy Village Manager, as well as Margaret Schwartz, who's our Assistant CFO, and their whole team. It's a lot of time and effort that goes into this, and it's always nice to come to a conclusion. Here we are halfway through this fiscal year, talking about last fiscal year, but that is the timeline. I want to mention, and Joe pointed to this somewhat in his report, that the village has again received the Government Finance Officers Association's Triple Crown Award. This recognizes the annual comprehensive financial report, the popular annual financial report, and then the distinguished budget presentation. These are all three of GFOA's premier financial reporting awards in one single year. And I believe this may be the fourth or fifth year in a row that we've received all three. There are fewer than 450 governments across the United States and Canada that receive the Triple Crown, and I think it's just worthwhile expressing that. And again, gratitude to our team. We are truly fortunate to have people of the caliber that we do serving in this community, and I think the reward's a reflection of their dedication and hard work. So thank you to all of our finance team and to the village board and our finance committee, who are hand in hand with us as we work through every fiscal year. It's always good to have a clean audit, but particularly grateful for the guidance, leadership, and collaboration that we experience. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you for your time.
I just have one further item that I'm going to ask our communications manager, Sammy Hansel, to come forward. This year, as you may know, is the semi-quincentennial of the United States, the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, and there are some exciting things in store for the community's July 4th and Independence Day celebrations, but also it's just a big year for events and summertime events in particular. So I'm going to hand it to Sammy to walk us through those.
Thank you. Before I get to America 250 celebrations, I want to start with the Glencoe Sidewalk Sale and North Shore Exchange Tent Sale, which begins tomorrow and also takes place on Saturday. We encourage everyone to go out and shop our local businesses. Our next special event in our series of fun this summer is the Glencoe Al Fresco. It is our live music and food truck series, which kicks off for the first of 3 nights planned this summer on June 26th from 5 to 7 p.m. in Women's Library Club Park, which is just east of Writers Theater. June's theme is Americana as we barrel towards our Independence Day celebrations. The band Simple Remedy will be performing the best elements of country, Chicago blues, America's soul, and Nashville sound. Our food vendors for the evening will be Louis B. Fresh Food Truck, and Glencoe's own RDK Sushi will be there as a pop-up, operating from their Apple a Day catering, but they'll also have RDK Sushi available for carry-out from their restaurant. Writers Theater will, of course, be open with their bar, and family-friendly activities will be available for, with the Glencoe Public Library and the Women's Library Club. Our next 2 events in this series are July 24th and August 28th, and details on musicians and food for those nights are available on the village's website. I'd like to thank our headline sponsor for the summer, Wells Fargo, for generously sponsoring the series this year. They will also be at all 3 events and offering giveaways and other fun for the community. And then the pinnacle of fun for the summer, America's 250th birthday, is only weeks away. The agenda of events to celebrate this monumental moment for our nation begin on Friday, July 3rd, with Party in the Park, which begins at 5 p.m. at Lakefront Park, and the fireworks will be at 9 p.m. The firework display will be a little bit bigger this year in celebration, so we hope the community will come out for that. And we're grateful to the Park District and their partnership on that event as well. On July 4th, there's a whole day of fun, starting with the fun run at 8 a.m., followed by family games in Chalk Park at 9:30. We are also dedicating a tree to America's 250th birthday, so at 11 a.m. at the Glencoe train station, we'll have a photo opportunity for that, so we hope the board will show up for that moment. And then there's a 4th of July bags tournament in Chalk Park, and then the grand finale, the parade, which steps off at 1 p.m. in the downtown. We encourage the community to get involved in all of these events and especially show up for the parade. The deadline has passed just to sign up for the parade, but we can make accommodations if people still want to squeeze in their float or their other community group entries. A couple reminders about the parade. Traffic and parking along the route will be prohibited beginning at 10 a.m. on July 4th through the parade's conclusion. A map of that route is posted at the village's website, and impacted residents and businesses will be contacted prior to the 4th. A couple other quick dates for summer events. Glencoe Festival of Art is July 18th and 19th. Green Bay Trail Day is July 25th, and our Public Safety Department will be back in parks throughout Glencoe on Tuesdays in August to show off their training skills and meet the community. More details on all of these events are available on our website at villageofglencoe.org/events.
Thank you, Sammy. Lots going on. Sammy is responsible for a lot of those things, so I wanted to make sure she had a chance to talk about the work that she's doing, but it is a community-wide, an opportunity for community-wide celebration this summer, and we're excited about all of the things that are planned. With that, that's the conclusion of my report, unless there are any questions that the board may have.
I don't see any questions. The next item on the agenda is the village president's report. That's me. The first part of my report is consideration of the appointment of Daniel Rubenstein to the Public Safety Commission for a one-year term ending April 30th, 2027. Dan's served on the Public Safety Commission for a long time. He served brilliantly, valiantly. The reason he's getting a one-year term is because we've decided that to make sure that the Public Safety Commission always has people who are experienced, we're staggering the terms. So there are 3 members, and we won't have all 3 leaving at the same time. Is there a motion to approve Dan's appointment to the Public Safety Commission for 1 year?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Dan Rubenstein is approved. Next 3 items are some resolutions honoring our volunteers who've served the village. The first is a resolution honoring Commissioner Amy Mizell for over 5 years of service on the Glencoe Council for Inclusion and Community. Next, a resolution honoring Commissioner Michael Laporte for 8 years of service on the Glencoe Golf Club Advisory Committee. And last, a resolution honoring Commissioner Jerry Wine for 8 years of service to the Glencoe Golf Club Advisory Committee. We've circulated those resolutions. Unless there are questions or comments, is there a motion to approve those 3 resolutions?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That carries. The resolutions are approved. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes items that have been published online for the community and reviewed by the board members individually or together as part of our committee of the whole discussions. We don't think they warrant further public discussion. So unless there are any questions or comments, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We would need a roll call for this one.
Trustee Hallwax.
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos.
Yes.
Trustee Underdonk.
Yes.
Trustee Rosenblatt.
Yes.
Trustee Rubin.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
The consent agenda is approved. The next item on the agenda is regular business. And our first, and let me say, I've noticed we have a large audience, and I can tell from the signups what you want to talk about. So after we take care of this little item of the bonds, we're going to move the streetscape up. So you can hear about it, talk to us, and all of those of you who are really civically oriented can stick around for the rest of the stuff, but you don't have to. Okay. Deputy Village Manager and CFO Nikki Larson is going to present on consideration and action on an ordinance providing for the issuance of approximately 10,090,000 general obligation bonds, Series 2026A, and approximately 3,895,000 general obligation bonds, Series 26B of the village to finance various capital improvements in and for the village, providing for the levy and collection of a direct annual tax to pay the principal and interest on these bonds, and authorizing the sale of these bonds to the purchasers. Deputy Village Manager Larson, take it away.
Thank you, President Rowan. This morning, the village, alongside its financial advising firm, Spear Financial, held an online auction for 2 series of bonds, General Obligation Bond Series 2026A and 2026B. The board will recall that we did split these 2 series depending on the use for the bonds. 2026A will be funding infrastructure improvements for the village, village-wide, for 2026, 2027, and 2028. Contrary to what we have done in the past, where we've issued separate water bonds, we've combined them all as a home rule unit. Now the village can issue general obligation bonds for all purposes in terms of infrastructure. So I do want to note that although we sized this bond issue to $10 million, $3 million of that will not hit the property tax levy. We will be abating the levy for that, which means we will be paying that bond back through water fund reserves. This bond issuance was included in the calendar year 2026 budget, so the discussion of this bond issue started this time last year, as we're already starting to kick off next year's budget, and was included in the 10-year CIP financing plan. The second series, 2026B, just shy of $4 million, will be funding the first phase of the village's library expansion. This will be funding all of the soft costs for the project as they begin gearing up for construction, either later this year or early next year. Residents in Glencoe supported this via an advisory referendum that was passed on March 17th, 2026. The timeline for these bonds, not as long as the audit process, but it is certainly lengthy. We did start this in May with a bond rating call in which S&P Ratings did reaffirm our AAA rating, which we have that rating to thank for the favorable results that we received today. In June, we received an official statement from our financial advisors, which was used to market the sale of these bonds. And then we held the sale this morning at 10 a.m. and 10:30 p.m. or 10:30 a.m. Before you at each of your places is the final bond ordinance, which has been adjusted based off of this morning's bond sale results. The bond ordinance that was included in the agenda packet was a draft that we could not complete until we had the results of the bond sale this evening. If the board elects to approve the results that are before you, we do anticipate closing on July 2nd and receiving the remaining bond proceeds at that time. We do have Mark Geratina from Spear Financial, and I'll ask him to come up and present the results of the sale for you today.
Good evening, everyone. As Nikki mentioned, we held 2 sales today, one for the 2026 A bonds, and I'll start with that. That's for the village $10.4 million project fund deposit. We received 5 bids from 22 we've received 22 bids from 5 bidders, and the winning bidder was R. Silas and Company with a 3.917 interest rate. Second place was TD Financial Products with a 3.92%. Robert Baird was a 3.23%. Northland Securities was a 3.961%. And Huntington Securities was a 3.97. So it was all very close, and that represents it was a good sale, good competitive auction when all the interest rates are that close together. For the 2026 B bonds, which are the library bonds, we also received 24 total bids from 5 different bidders. And the winning bidder was TD Financial Products, which was a 3.891% interest rate. Second place was R. Silas and Company, who won the 2026 A bonds with a 3.897, so less than a 1% interest rate differential between the two. Robert W. Baird came in third with a 3.90% interest rate. Huntington Securities with a 3.99, and finally Northland with a 4.01% interest rate. So it was very competitive. Overall, it was very, very good auction. We just wanted to see under 4%, which is what we received. So overall, I thought both auctions went very well, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. Very clear. Okay. Nikki, are you done with your initial presentation, or is there more?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Before
Happy to answer questions.
Before we, any questions? In fact, before we do that, before we have questions from the board, and before we vote, is there public comment on the bonds? Okay. Board members, any comments or questions for either Nikki or for our experts who conducted the sale? Okay. Well, it's an interesting time. Interest rates, interesting. Fed yesterday, so I guess I would kind of congratulate you on getting us through this and getting it under 4%. It was lovely when it was 2%, but those days apparently are over. Is there a motion to approve the bond ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Yeah, ought to have a roll call, please.
Trustee Hallwax?
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos?
Yes.
Trustee Underdog?
Yes.
Trustee Rosenblatt?
Yes.
Trustee Rubin?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Bond ordinance passes. Okay, we're going to, as I promised, we're going to skip. We're going to go out of order and turn next to consideration of a resolution adopting the Glencoe Streetscape Plus parking study. And I'll ask our Development Services Director, Taylor Baxter, to present.
Thank you, President Rowan, members of the board. This is a consideration of the final version of the Glencoe Parking and Streetscape Study. We met and discussed this at the Committee of the Whole meeting just last month. And the final feedback from staff, the Plan Commission, and also Village Board from last month have been incorporated into this document for your review tonight, along with the adopting resolution that's in the agenda packet. This process has been going on since 2024, when the initial parking study was completed for the study area, which expands east of Green Bay Road and covers most of the central business district, uptown, excuse me. This study took a bit longer than anticipated, in no small part due to the amount of public outreach that was included. That included one community survey in the winter of 2024 and 25, some focus groups, a public open house. After that public open house, the board asked for some additional public outreach, which was the second community survey, which went out in fall of last year. The Plan Commission and the Village Board have been holding meetings throughout this process from time to time to provide feedback and guidance to the planning team. And there's also been regular community updates from the village via e-news and some other communication tools, social media, et cetera, throughout. An overview of some of the study recommendations that you'll find in this study it really does focus on looking for some opportunities to improve parking throughout the area, but really not at the expense of the character of the area and walkability. The prioritization of pedestrian connectivity and safety was repeatedly the highest priority from the Plan Commission, and that was affirmed by the Village Board in discussions that we've had. It includes updated standards, or the call to update standards for outdoor dining, streetscapes, etc., and to increase people's willingness or the desirability of accessing the area without needing to park in the core of the area at peak times. That could be through making it easier to walk or bike or take transit. And you also see a lot of recommendations in there about making it easier to access parking across Green Bay Road. There's a call, one of the core items in the work plan, which we discussed last month, it was the call to start on a corridor study of Green Bay Road from the metro station all the way down to Hazel Avenue, and make it, with the intent to make it a lot easier and more comfortable for people to walk across there and use some of the parking that might not be that might be more available than the parking in the core of the district. Notably, the study calls to explore opportunities for new parking. We'll talk about this in just a moment, because this is the one, I think, key change that came out of last week's discussion, is some language in the plan. With the acknowledgement, to explore it with the acknowledgement that this is really going to take a high level of care and design, and also additional outreach. The study does not call for constructing new on-street parking. It calls for studying it and having this conversation moving forward. Coming out of last month's discussion, this is the main change that you'll see in the proposed work plan. And both of these changes deal with that potential to construct new on-street parking. Previously, the infrastructure projects list said to establish on-street parking expansions. That has been removed from the work program and has been replaced with this new item in the policy and planning projects section, which says conduct a study and outreach to evaluate on-street parking expansion opportunities, including parking space orientation and landscaped islands. So I note this just to emphasize that the study does not call for us to come out and construct any new on-street parking. It is really a call for us to continue the conversation, to study it, with the express idea that we're going to have much more public outreach and opportunities for input on this. I know that there's likely some people here who wish to provide public comments, most likely on the on-street parking issue. So the next steps would be to allow for public comments, and then potentially to make a motion. The motion would be to approve the attached resolution with any changes that you determine to be appropriate. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I think before we ask questions, I want to give our public a chance to speak. But I just want to reiterate what Taylor just said, which is I'm going to assume that the people are here not coming to say, yeah, put a parking space in front of my house. We're not deciding today whether there are going to be any parking spaces in front of anybody's house. We're just looking at it. Parking has been thought to be, parking uptown has been thought to be a big problem for as long as I've lived here. It continues to be a big problem, and we are constantly doing what we can to increase the parking because people don't want to walk very far to get to the places they want to walk. So what this proposes to do is to continue looking at it to try to figure out what's best. Before we decide to proceed with putting parking spaces in front of anybody's house, we're going to notify all the neighbors. We're going to invite them to participate in helping us decide what to do. There will be hearings before we do anything. So I just want to say there is no if you think parking is the worst in front of your house is the worst thing that could ever happen, and that your house value will fall to zero if it happens, I just want to assure you, I don't think any of that bad stuff will happen, but we're not near that. It will not happen as a result of what we do tonight. With that, I have a pretty long list of people who want to talk about parking, and you are welcome to come up. I'm going to call you one at a time. Handwriting could be better, so I'm going to butcher your name, and I apologize for that. And let me just say you're limited to 3 minutes. If you spend less than 3 minutes, that might be good. Brevity is the source of all speaker points. If somebody has said what you're about to say, it's great to come up and say, I agree with all of that. We'll notice it. Okay. And again, I just want to assure you, if we vote to approve what's in front of us, that just means we're continuing to look at it. That's all. With that, Abby Persky. So come up, even though I called your name, you have to say your name and then your 3 minutes start.
Good evening, President Rowan and trustees. My name is Abby Persky. My husband, Robert Delforge, and I are 23-year residents of Glencoe. Our home is located at 732 Vernon, directly across from Friends Park. I want to say at the outset that we love living here in Glencoe. We love the fact that there's a neighborhood park across the street, and we love the fact that we can see children playing when we look outside our front window. Vernon Avenue is our home, so much so that when a home became available a few doors down, we helped our daughter and son-in-law purchase that home so that our family could continue to reside on Vernon Avenue for generations to come. That said, we understand the challenges that come with living on Vernon Avenue. Traffic is a consistent issue, and we sometimes encounter difficulties safely pulling out or backing out of our driveway. There is also the occasional illegally parked car in front of our driveway, or more often than not, cars turning around in our driveway. We understand all of that. But what we find incredibly alarming and would object to strenuously is, in effect, extending the B1 commercial district almost literally to our front doors and placing, not sure how many, but approximately a dozen or more, 16 perhaps, parking spots in front of the park. An area that is already chaotic, busy, and potentially dangerous for children would become even more so. It would permanently alter the residential neighborhood of the block and eliminate the buffer zone between the residential and commercial districts. We appreciate the village's efforts to support local businesses. I'm a business owner myself, but not at the expense of the lived experience of our residents or the safety of our children. My specific ask is this. If the streetscape and parking study is adopted, it should be done without the recommendation to consider converting the parkway in front of Friends Park to on-street parking. In my view, this is a potentially marginal benefit for Glencoe businesses, which will come at the daily and permanent expense of Glencoe residents. Finally, I would ask that the village ensure that the Vernon Avenue neighbors are fully engaged and informed about the process and in a position to actively participate in the dialogue. The only way many of us found out that adding these parking spaces might be even considered was because of random chatter at a park district function held at Friends Park less than a month ago. It's important that our voices are heard and that we are actively engaged in the process. Our voices matter. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, next, Robbie Schloss.
Good evening. Robbie Schloss. I'm on Greenwood and Hazel. I wanted to offer my experience and opinion being across from spots that may be similar to what is going to be proposed. We moved, and this was a pre-existing condition. We love being across from Berlin there. The spots provide, great parking for those families coming to attend baseball games over at Central and the different sporting events. What I do not believe they were for are the employees of businesses in the business district. And what we see them being used for most often are employees of these businesses coming and parking for long periods of time. And what happens is the families attending the park or school that need to use these spots for shorter periods of time don't have anywhere to park. And even customers going to the businesses can't use those spots on Greenwood. So as you guys look to satisfy and fix this parking problem that does exist in downtown Glencoe, I would advise everybody to look at what's happening on Greenwood and make an altercation to it. If it were up to me on our street, we would move those 48-hour spots to 2-hour spots to provide more frequent use of them. It doesn't bother me that families get to enjoy the park that are nearby or visit it for these soccer games and baseball games, but what does bother me is when an employee of a business is parking there for an entire day. For us to see Glencoe thrive and get more businesses and restaurants, they need to have customers frequenting them, and we don't have enough spots. And I think if we can employ these businesses to get their employees to go to Temple Court or the Metro Station lots, 60 plus 70% of the parking that exists in this town is over there, and it's not being utilized by the employees. I don't know if Temple is available in the PM after municipalities close to the public, but if the public was aware that they could use those lots, they are half a block further. So are the Metro lots. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Kim McAdams.
Good evening. My name is Kim McAdams, and I have been a resident of Glencoe for about 22 years. My husband, John McAdams, and I live across the street from Friends Park. I wanted to share a letter this evening that was sent to me this afternoon by my mother-in-law, who has been a resident of Glencoe as well. She couldn't be here tonight, so I wanted to share her note with the board. Good evening, Glencoe Village Board. My name is Patricia McAdams, and I have been a proud resident of Glencoe since 1977. I raised my family here and am now fortunate to watch my children raise their own families in the village we all love. I currently own 3 properties in Glencoe, all located near the downtown area. While I am unable to attend this evening's meeting because I'm out of town, I wanted to share my thoughts in writing. I strongly oppose the proposal to add parking adjacent to Friends Park on Vernon Avenue within this residential block. When my son and daughter-in-law moved into their home at 728 Vernon, directly across from the park, it became immediately apparent how parked cars near the intersection of Vernon Avenue and Tudor Court affected visibility at the crosswalk. Children crossing the street were often difficult to see until they had already entered the roadway. Recognizing this safety concern, the village previously removed parking near the stop sign to improve sightlines. That change has made a meaningful difference, particularly in an area where children are frequently running, playing, and crossing the street. Reintroducing parking in this location would reverse those improvements, increase congestion, and create additional safety concerns in one of the busiest pedestrian areas of town. I also question whether it is necessary to place additional parking so close to residential homes and community green space. As a senior citizen, I've never minded walking a few blocks to reach the pharmacy, grocery store, dentist, or other downtown destinations. The convenience of a handful of additional parking spaces does not justify sacrificing valuable green space and altering the character of the neighborhood. The grassy area near Friends Park serves as an important purpose. It provides a buffer between children and traffic, offers a place for residents and visitors to gather, and contributes to the beauty and charm of our community. It is disheartening to think that this space could be replaced with asphalt. I would encourage the village to explore alternative solutions. Have underutilized parking areas, including the train station lots, been fully considered? Could a shuttle service be implemented for those who have difficulty walking longer distances, similar to the Park District's beach transportation program? Has the village, or has, oh, rats, that's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm not going to be commenting on any of these, but I do want to say I would thank your mother-in-law. Okay, Jen Scott.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Scott. I live at 724 Vernon, and I'm here with my other neighbors to talk about parking. We are opposed to the parking also across from Friends Park, and we are thankful that there's going to be consideration given and study taken and our feedback considered as you move forward with the parking. Just something to note, I am at the house is right next to the alleyway on the west side of Vernon, across from Friends Park, and on a daily basis, I notice that there's a lot of traffic that comes from other locations down Dundee, traveling along Vernon, and as you know, the business district basically starts right there. And yesterday, I happened to look out my front door, and with the the coffee shop and everything, they get deliveries, and there must have been somebody parked there, so I had a huge semi-truck parked in front of my house waiting to back into the alley to take a delivery to the coffee shop. So imagine now you've got an 18-wheeler sitting in front of my house across from Friends Park. You've got people trying to get around the 18-wheeler. You've got people coming to and from Friends Park and other traffic. Now, if you were to put parking there as well, I just see all kinds of congestion and dangerous scenarios for kids and other people trying to get across Vernon and kids going to and from the park. So I guess as you do your study, maybe keep that in mind too, that you've got that extra truck traffic that's coming in and out of the alleyway, also competing with that trucks and other things, cars, pedestrians in that location. And I do agree with everything else my neighbors have said. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tom Fink.
I'm going to defer to and agree with all the thoughtful comments of my neighbors.
Brevity is the source of all speaker points. Thank you, Mr. Fink. Handwriting almost as good as mine. Mark, you're going to say your name.
Hi, my name is Mark Versaikis, and in a couple of years here, my family's going to be celebrating 100 years in this community. And one thing, even in my portion of living here, is I've noticed that we had this exact same meeting in 1996. And I went with my mother to this exact same meeting in 1982. It was thought that after the 70s inflation, if we had more parking spaces, Glencoe businesses would do better. And my grandmother lived on top of the drugstore in 1931, and she used to tell me stories about how all the push cart people were pissed at the car owners because they could no longer park their horses in Glencoe, and that all these people coming to Glencoe businesses were going to change the character of the village that we live in. I live Greenwood and Hazel, kitty corner to the tennis courts. Our corner's a little active here tonight. And it's always the same story. We have parking spaces on the curb, and it's not even a full street. We've got a bunch of trees and a telephone pole. They can get 3 spots between the Women's Exchange and the school. Now, if anybody's been at that corner of our corner, anytime between 2 o'clock and 4:30, you're going to see 100 cars this way, 50 cars this way. In fact, I remember when this started, policemen were complaining that there was a line right in front of this building for people picking up kids over there. It's a terrible idea to think of putting spots in there. And until we can figure out how we can stop people from taking left turns in a parking space right there in front of hometown, it's going to be nothing but that business straight over there. It's usually the first corner that gets the axe on the, hey, let's make parking spaces available, because it makes so much sense. You put it over to Hazel, you're going to get the same nonsense anywhere near that school. And they all travel this way into town anyway. It's dangerous. It's a bad idea. I appreciate that people try and throw it up there. Yet every time you can go over to the metro station and you can see empty spots. I remember the last time I was in here for this meeting, there were 6 people that worked at the shoe store, Charisse, that had multiple thousands of dollars of tickets. And poor Bruce Boudreau didn't have the heart. Like, they would just yell at him, "You're not giving me another ticket." So we got another person, and that seemed to help by really enforcing the businesses themselves. And I can say right now, without naming names, there are multiple businesses here in town where one person will come in, they'll take the shift of the person leaving. And this happens all day long. We've got to be able to do that. If we can't convince our commercial properties to do some self-enforcement for their own benefit, why nail the people?
Thank you. Gina Prop Shamarik.
Good evening, President and trustees.
Before you start,
I'm
we're
Gina.
not going to charge you for this. We got a long letter from
Yes.
a lawyer with a name similar to yours.
That is
your
my husband.
Okay, just so, and we
I'm not
got it.
going to read that letter, just so you know.
It would take too long. You wouldn't 3 minutes. But we got it. We read it. We're considering it. Okay, 3 minutes start.
So my name is Gina Prop Shmarik, and I live at 701 Greenwood and have lived there for over 30 years. Many of the things I was going to say have been said. Things that I do want to highlight is that I also was here the last time some of these suggestions were made. And one of the issues that is really critical is that there are a lot of employees of the businesses who are parking in spots that should be for the patrons. And again, I feel like we're trying to solve for a problem that we don't even know if there is a problem, because the parking regulations aren't properly being enforced, because there are so many people parking there when they should be parking in the employee lots. And when this was discussed, I don't know if it was 20 years ago, whenever it was, the whole idea of having a buffer between the commercial district and the residential district really won the day, because you can't have cars with lights going into homes, the beeping when you unlock and lock a door, the revving of the engines, all that disrupts the residential district. We are living in a residential district. We are not living in a commercial district, and there has to be some sort of buffer. As far as the security of children, I live on the northeast corner of Park and Greenwood, similar to what they're experiencing on Hazel. Every day when school's out, you have lines of cars that are not moving. They're just blocking the intersection, waiting for the car line to start. The even thought of putting any more cars there or parking or anything is so dangerous. Cars are already trying to go around that line. You've got people trying, sorry, I keep doing this, people trying to cross from north to south on Greenwood. It is extraordinarily dangerous already, and that would just make it even worse. The proposal, and again, when you say we're not proposing it now, what I would ask you is that it gets taken off the table. I don't even think it's something that should be looked at down the road. You'd be trading residential green space and mature trees in this buffer for a marginal increase in commercial district parking. It does not reflect Glencoe's values of trying to protect the green part and keep this little hamlet a hamlet. And so so again, I don't know, my 3 minutes is almost up, but I would not vote to have this just pushed down the road. Those of us who are completely impacted by this were not even notified of this, as was also mentioned before, which I don't think was fair or appropriate. And in order to maintain the character of the village, in order to protect the kids who have to be at that intersection, I think that you should just take this particular proposal off the table completely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Zach Ohana.
I didn't mean to sign up.
Brevity is the source of all speaker points, even if it was a mistake to sign up. Okay, Ben.
I'll speak for a second.
So I'm taking your brevity award away.
My name's Zach. I've lived here my entire life. I'm 21 years old. I live on the west side of Glencoe. I think that it's clear from kind of everyone who's spoken. Sorry, no, you're good.
You get extra seconds.
That a lot of this issue, I think, comes down to resident versus non-resident parking. So with the beach, like one thing that's unique to the Glencoe beach is that in comparison to other towns like Winnetka, Highland Park?
Excuse me. We already covered the beach issue. We also, we did it at public comment time. What we're supposed to be talking about now is just the parking issue uptown with the streetscape study. So I regret that, consistent with our rules, I have to cut you off.
Okay. Well, I support everyone who's spoken, and thank you.
Okay. Now, excuse me. We don't do that either, please. Ben Miller.
Hi, I'm Ben Miller from Maple Hill Road. I'm a baby resident here, having only lived in Glencoe 14 years. I support, rather I oppose, and I wanted to share I share the opinion of the people that oppose adding more parking, particularly in front of Friends Park. I think most of the points have been covered. I'd like to just say our goal is to make Glencoe more sustainable. Adding more pavement and getting rid of green goes in the wrong way. So that's point one. And point two is, I just think there's plenty of parking, and this is basically a convenience versus cost and other issues. I live a whopping 15-minute walk from downtown. I have lots of meetings in downtown Glencoe. I should never have to drive. That being said, about half the time I drive. Due to my own poor planning, I don't leave 15 minutes to walk. I would love if someone invented a teleporter. I could walk out my door and 10 seconds later, I'm in Glencoe. We could create enough parking so everyone could do that, but the fact of the matter is there would just be acres of pavement. So I believe there's plenty of parking we have. It just requires literally 3 minutes more walk or 2 minutes more walk, and that's why I oppose adding more parking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hamilton Hill.
Hi, my name is Hamilton Hill. I live at the corner of Park and Greenwood. I agree with what my friends and neighbors have said. I won't repeat much. The only thing I would sort of add is I wish you all would take it off the idea of adding new parking spaces in front of residential homes off the table. If you're not going to, as others have said, giving us direct notice of anyone who might be impacted, a letter, a call, all of the above, so that everyone knows in advance would be good. I also think that, for all of us who have homes anywhere near the central business district, we bought those homes knowing what the parking situation was in front of our home. The parking across the street from my house on Park begins at 6:20 in the morning with people slamming the car doors and phone conversations and smoking and everything else. You know what? It's not always great, but I signed up for that because that parking was there when I bought the house. The idea of adding a whole nother side of parking to any of these areas right around the central business district would be sort of a bait and switch for all of us. It wouldn't be fair for many of us. This is the biggest investment we've ever made. We pay tens of thousands of dollars in property taxes every year. I don't think it'd be right. I don't think it'd be fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. And thank you for your service on the school board. Nicole Downey.
Hi, good evening. I'm Nicole Downey. I live on the corner of Greenwood and Hazel. And some of my comments, I would just like to reiterate that I agree with my neighbors, but there are a couple of points that I wanted to address as well. If this study continues forward, I wanted to just read a couple of points from the actual streetscape study itself. The streetscape study states that targeted expansion of on-street parking should be pursued in select locations where it is compatible with the surrounding land use. All of the areas we're talking about are also labeled as the residential transition. So the streetscape study sort of acknowledges that the use of this space is residential use. So I don't think it makes sense to put, whether it's angled parking or parallel parking, when it encroaches upon the residential side of the transition, right? And that's exactly what we're all talking about here, that, business parking is now encroaching upon the residential side of these transition spaces. And our homes, which we love, are really that buffer between town and the residences. So I think it's important to protect that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. John McAdams. And your name and address is very similar to Kim McAdams' name.
It's
but
very
you're entitled to your 3 minutes.
And it's even more similar to the woman Patricia McAdams that wrote that letter. Kind of weird how that works. But anyway, yes, I grew up in Glencoe as well, so I am from 1977, and then I've had a residence here myself for the last 22 years. I agree with everything everyone has said here. The one most important thing I want to point out to you, the board, 12 years ago, there was an attempt to, where the Scotts live, buy their house to knock it down for parking, which is right next door to me. Now, that got kind of kicked under the carpet, but there was never any communication. I found out because when the house was being sold, the owner at the time, the Tings, actually informed me that the village was looking to buy their home. So as I stand here and hear about the streetscape that would be in front of my house, I never received a letter. I never had a knock on the door. No one ever told us. Yet somehow we found out, and that's why we have all these people here. So I'm going to put back on to you, if you want to move forward with this project, which none of us agree with, that your communication needs to be a lot better to the people that are directly being impacted by this idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McAdams. Henry and Peggy Maisel. So you're Henry.
I'm Harry.
Harry, sorry.
Thank you, President and the board. I concur with everything everybody has said. I live at 745 Vernon, which is directly next door to Friends Park, just to the north on the east side. So, we think of the park is, sacred. There's kids, and it is significantly dangerous, I think, if you're putting parking on the parkway with sight lines, with landscape services, with Amazon trucks coming down Vernon. It can be a scary place, and it will be a bottleneck, especially when you approach park. So I'm not going to reiterate everything that's been said because it's already been said. I think there are other opportunities here. There are other places for people to park. We talked about being on the east side by the train. You could, put some lipstick on some of those parking spots and, make it prettier for people to park there. I think there should be more exploration of some better parking options. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maisel. Carly Maisel and Lee Bublow.
Hi, my name is Carly Maisel. I grew up in the Glencoe area for a long time. We've lived in a few different areas, but more recently we've lived at the house directly next to Friends Park. And I wholeheartedly agree with everything everyone here has said. I do think it would just be a dangerous addition, and especially if you're considering the crosswalk right there. We've been almost hit by cars there many times, and I think adding another layer to that would just not be the right thing to do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Lydia Barnett.
Hi, everyone. Lydia Barrett at 778 Vernon. My husband, David Barrett, already sent a letter to the board, so I won't read that. I want to reiterate everything that my neighbors have said already. It's thanks to Kim McAdams that I'm here today and that we knew about that. So I, again, hope that this is eliminated from consideration in the future, but if not, then I think community engagement is really critical. One thing that was brought up is a lot of the left-hand, sorry, I need to slow down. A lot of people turn left illegally into parking spots. And so what I think is going to happen is that once people that are going north past kind of the hometown area, past the Walgreens, if they can't find a spot, they use Tudor Court to do a circle round. If now that there's parking where Friends Park is, they're going to keep going further, and they're going to use all of our parking driveways to do a little turnaround and go back into town. So that's kind of a big concern for me, and that's kind of all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Lee Bublil, did you want to speak? Yes, briefly. Okay, come on up.
Hi, my name is Lee Bublil. I'm a medical student, and I'm relatively newer to the area, but I've definitely fallen in love with it. Just two very brief points. I do support everybody that my fellow residents have mentioned, and thank you for your time as well for us to kind of speak in our mind about this. The first thing is, as someone that does go to study a lot in the kind of smaller businesses like that are in town, I do see how the parking kind of works, especially in front of hometown, for example, and other businesses as well. And I think that either way, having parking in front of the Friends Park just creates a bottleneck because people kind of get lined up behind and trying to basically wait as well. And as a second kind of issue that my fiance also brought up in regards to the immediate crosswalk in front of Friends Park, it's very hard even for me as an adult to cross by without kind of doing a small jolt for people to actually stop, so let alone kids. I've seen them wait for multiple cars to pass by. Either way, kind of a small recommendation is maybe adding one of those flashing lights with the button like in front of Takeif, because it's also a very busy area. Would kind of help the smaller families and people to cross safely and to kind of notify the people to actually stop. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I think I have two more. Eric Feinberg.
I'm going to defer. My neighbors have said everything that I would have said.
You get the brevity prize. Thank you. John Katz.
So I'm John Katz. I live at 771 Vernon. Reiterate and support everything that everybody said so far. President Rowan, you actually said something that I think is pretty telling, which is that it was thought to be a problem. Parking is thought to be a problem. I've been here since 2012, and I remember some of the efforts that other folks here have mentioned to expand parking, including trying to tear down that house. I don't think that there is a problem. I think that this is a solution in search of a problem. If you look at the actual parking study, which was done on a Wednesday and it was done on a Friday in, I think, October, and it studied the peak times, they found at the peak of parking, there's only 85% occupancy of the spaces. That means that there's 15% during the peak time. If you think about the weekends, people are able to park up and down on Vernon heading south, and so that expands the parking. There's more parking in the Metro lot during that same time of the weekend because you don't have the commuters there. There's no parking problem here. There is a convenience parking, as one of the prior speakers said. And I'm sorry, you're not entitled at the expense of safety to, and the expense of infringing upon people's residential peace and quiet to have to walk an extra 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I don't think we should be sacrificing convenience for all of the things and all the concerns that everybody here has mentioned. I don't think there's been a parking or a traffic study done, which I think is integral to figuring out how parking is going to impact flow of traffic on Park and on Vernon. Vernon is an incredibly busy street. I look out my window and I see road rage incidents. I see people almost getting into accidents on a frequent occurrence. It's the main route for emergency vehicles that are heading through town. Can you imagine 15 or 10 additional spaces where people are looking for parking or backing out of those spots, and then they have to contend with emergency vehicles heading north down Dundee? I mean, the emergency vehicles go by several times a day, so I really think you should consult your public safety department as well as to whether that would impact it. If anything, you need to be quieting traffic on Vernon instead of adding cars. And what Lydia Barrett just said is exactly right. If you have cars that are now passing Tudor, they're all going to be shunted down Vernon, and so you're increasing the traffic flow north on Vernon, as opposed to them being able to turn around Tudor Court, which is perfectly appropriate for people to turn around because it's not residential. There are alternatives here. One of them is the municipal lot. This was considered before. You guys, it's empty all the time, okay? And I don't understand why you don't do something more with that municipal lot to make a centralized parking area where you can put all of the parking and all of the people and all the traffic flow in one central place. And if you look at neighboring communities, that's what they do. And you don't see them adding parking in residential areas. What you do see them doing is restricting parking in residential areas.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who...
was on the list.
On this?
It was on that list, yeah.
Okay, and you want to talk about this parking issue?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I know you don't want me to talk about Lakeville.
No.
That's correct. I got that.
It's not that I don't want to. We're done with that.
We're not done with that, but I understand that you're done with that.
All right, Mr. Shapek, go ahead.
I agree with what my fellow Glencoe residents have said tonight, and I support what they're saying. But I have one question. The village's own study recommends using its existing license plate recognition equipment downtown. Has that data been analyzed to determine how many of those 85% peak hour spaces are occupied by Glencoe residents versus visitors from neighboring communities? Because that answer likely changes your entire policy response.
Anyone else want to talk about the streetscape study parking? If you do, come on up.
No, I'm just going to, my name's, hey, Phil. No, my name's Ray Brister. I'm just going to say I agree with everybody.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. That concludes the public comment. So let's have some board discussion about the proposal for tonight. Does any board members want to talk about this, questions or anything? All right.
I'll make a couple comments.
Trustee Rosenblatt.
Thank you. First of all, obviously, I think it's important that the village does a better job in keeping the residents informed about parking spaces or things that are going to affect their neighborhood. So obviously, we should work in that. I did notice there's a lot of people apparently living at the corner of Greenwood and Hazel. I'm sure you're all not in the same homes, but you live right around there. We are working on trying to make parking better east of Green Bay Road, so people don't feel like you're in a different part of town. We're trying to kind of bring that in together with the downtown area so people can park there. Obviously, public safety and keeping the community a community is always important for all of us. And I think it's a good idea to put more pedestrian crossing lights up where kids try to cross the street on Vernon and things like that.
Anybody else? Trustee Rubin?
If only there was a consensus in that part of the room. You all brought up a lot of absolutely fair and good points. And notwithstanding that what we're talking about doing tonight is considering a study that would include potentially thinking about adding parking where you all have said we should not. I got to say, I'm very sympathetic, and I think I agree with you guys that I wouldn't want to add further congestion anywhere around the school parking lot. I mean, I've seen that. I think we all have the lines that develop for especially pickup, and that wouldn't help anything to add more parking. Certainly very interesting points I certainly hadn't thought of in terms of the turnaround and some of the safety issues that have been brought up about additional spots in front of Friends Park. Because frankly, that was the one place I thought, well, maybe in front of Friends Park, right? I mean, we can put up a barrier as there is along Tudor, so I wasn't worried about that in terms of the interaction with children, but I was thinking it's not headlights going into people's homes, et cetera, that, you know, it's already commercial-ish. But, you know, when you think about all of the congestion because of the very fortunate success of Hometown and our other businesses there, because of the points that have been raised, I do think that that might well be a problem, and certainly one that would have to be studied pretty carefully. I like the idea, frankly, about putting up more crossings with flashing lights. It's a personal favorite of mine, and that's a good candidate for a location right now, regardless of anything we do. And obviously is not the right word, but I agree wholeheartedly that, and I got to give credit where credit is due. I think our staff has done an excellent job. This is going on for a long time. There have been numerous communications that have gone out. I understand why you all are surprised to hear about this now. I get that because I take that as a sign, knock on wood, that in general things are going well here, so you do not have to pay close attention to what the village is doing most of the time. That's great and appropriate, and it means our staff is doing a phenomenal job. Thank you all for the way you run the village. But on something like this, with this level of sensitivity, we should have thought ahead, sent out letters to anybody that's in any of these districts that has a line near it saying, hey, we might be doing this, what do you think? Perfectly legitimate point. So I don't know what that means in terms of, do we try to modify? Is it appropriate to suggest we modify the proposal to take some of this off the table altogether at this point, or do we wait and consider it further at meetings? Because personally, I think that's where we're going to wind up, is we're going to hear this, we're going to understand it, we're going to hear it again if we have more meetings about it, and I don't know how about you all are going to vote, but I'm going to say, I'm with them.
So one of the things I do sitting here is count votes. I get that vote, and I understand, and I particularly understand that if we said we're going to continue with looking at it, we would study all the stuff the residents have said, and we might conclude after, you know, studying it, no, we're not doing this. That's what happened 20 years ago. So I want to ask I have my own views about whether we should strangle this in the cradle or whether we should keep considering it and make sure we get the right decision. But trustees, tell me what you think.
Just re-emphasizing once again for the room, this is not a decision about whether we're doing the parking tonight. And so the tricky piece about that is there's nothing to pull out because we're just saying we're thinking about it. And so to emphasize what Trustee Rubin said, you know, I have heard you loud and clear. I am comfortable with my personal assessment of where I think I would go in terms of further looking at the Friends Park parking in particular. So to me, the idea of having to pull it out it's not material to me, but it's also not my house. So, because I think if we look at it, we're going to consider everything you all said, and we're going to say this is a bad idea, and we're not going to look at it anymore. But I think there's probably a feeling in the room that you'd like some reassurance that we're not going to look at it anymore. And so, is there a procedural possibility for us with?
All right, let me just say, and again, we got to hear from the trustees because we're going to vote on what we have in the study, and we could certainly announce that we're not looking at any of the sort of the adjacent uptown parking. We could say that, and a number of the residents have suggested that, and the motion would be to approve the study, but taking out the adjacent uptown. We could do that. I'm not necessarily in favor of that, just as I like to make sure we've gotten all the information. But if that's what trustees want to do, we could do that. But I have, I'm just, like I said, counting votes. So where do you, let me just say, let me address a couple of points. A number of people have said, you didn't get notice, how dare the village proceed this way without telling the residents? And I get the point. I don't know the extent to which there was notice. I think Trustee Rubin's point was, we've been talking about this in public for months, and we've sent stuff out. Because this is just the first itty-bitty step in a long process, which would require a study and meetings and outreach and including all of you, I would say that the fact that you're here proves that our notice is good enough. There is zero chance that this village board would proceed at midnight to ram this down your throats, and you'd wake up one morning like Mayor Daley did with Meigs Field, and you'd have parking. So we never do that. We're not doing that to you. And one thing I can say is, you're here. We are not, if we were to approve this, you would have gotten letters, memos, meetings with staff, meetings with the village board, reviewing the study. We would do all of that. That's because that's what we do in this little town. So I think I don't feel like apologizing for the notice, because the fact that you're here proves that our notice is fine at this early stage of the process. A number of people have said, this was rejected before, give it up. I think times change, the views of people change, the actual facts on the ground may change. And so I generally like to make sure we have all the information. The village overwhelmingly rejected home rule in or around 1990, crushed it. And we could have said, well, that's done. I thought that was wrong then, and it turned out we thought about it and we overwhelmingly approved it a couple years ago. Is that likely to happen with this parking study? Yeah, probably not. In general, residents don't love putting stuff in front of their houses, whatever it is. They certainly wouldn't want a nuclear waste dump, and I understand that a parking space is somewhere along the continuum towards a nuclear waste dump. My personal view is, I think at the end of all of this, we would probably say, nah, not worth it, not worth getting all these neighbors mad over increasing parking. On the other hand, we are constantly under pressure from residents, not the residents that live uptown as you do. We are constantly under pressure from residents to get more parking so they do not have to walk as far to get to the stores they want to go to. That is real. And I've lived, so a lot of you are newbies that have only been here for 20 or 30 years. I've been here since 1955. And that parking uptown has been a huge issue all of that time. So my personal view is I would continue to study it. I think probably we'd end up saying, nah, but I'm not 100% sure. And the only prejudice to the residents is you would have to suffer a couple more meetings like this. You can consider it a civics lesson. So that would be my vote. But I think Trustee Rubin, and I get it, Gary and I almost always agree. But here on this little difference, we don't. So I detect, and I'm not sure. Maybe Trustee Scott is with Gary. And if we have a majority to say forget it, then I would say we would do a motion that says approve the streetscape study, but take out, as a number of you have suggested, considering this. My personal view is I always want to have the information. I would consider it.
Just real quick before we create a motion. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming tonight. We really appreciate everyone taking the time. Are we considering removing the idea of adding parking on all, on Park, Vernon, as well as Hazel, in those three areas, or just the ones in front of Park?
So let me say,
yeah,
the reason I think we could say we're just getting rid of this idea to make everybody in this room tonight happy, which would be all of them. And as I think, I don't see the case for saying that the people who live near Lakefront Park, they've really persuaded us, but the lower tier people who live near Berlin Field, we're going to study them. We might determine that one or the other is better, but I think that would require more study, which is why I think we should do more study. But like I said, I think Trustee Rubin's proposal is give it up, because we're going to eventually fold. And
Yeah, I'm trying to.
No, the answer is I think that would be I think that would be a bad idea.
Yeah, I'm not
to just talk about Friends Park.
No, I'm saying what are we?
That was not my proposal.
No,
it was just about Friends
right.
Park. It's just that was the one place
Yes.
that I thought.
Okay. So
On the map, we have proposed parking spots on Hazel in front of Public Works. We have it on Temple in front of Temple Court. We have 5 bubbles. So we're talking about the 3 bubbles adjacent to homes, correct? And we're leaving the ones in the Uptown Business District.
Taylor, is there a?
So,
I mean, I've been trying. We've all listened to these comments, and where people have objected.
I'd have to pull up the map, which I'm attempting to do right now, but I believe there are 3 areas. Thank you. So going back to Committee of the Whole, where we talked about the Plan Commission's recommendations on this, we were focusing on the areas that were outside of the B1 zoning district, which would be the Friends Park location, which is B, the Park Avenue location A, and the Hazel Avenue location C, were the 3 locations that were causing some concern among some, not all members, but some members of the Plan Commission, and that were discussed last week, because they are outside of the B1 zoning district, and there was concern about those particular spaces. If the board determined tonight that they did not want to consider those spaces anymore, I would recommend clarifying whether it was A, B, and C, or some number of those.
Okay. So let me say that Trustee Rubin's proposal is get rid of A, B, and C. I don't think anybody is proposing just cherry picking one of those. Trustees, what do you think?
I'd like to add something. I think in addition to talking about the physical aspects of the parking, I expect that there's more we could do from both an engineering perspective, whether it's flashing lights or providing special lanes, other kinds of engineering improvements that will help manage that traffic. Not to mention the time of day, and especially who's using the parking to tie up a space, for 8, 9.5 hours for an employee is much less important, I think, for the future of downtown than it is to have a space that will both turn over and be vacant from time to time. And I think that's worth pursuing as well. There are some other approaches in the planning bag of tricks too. That is something called tactical urbanism, where you try something out, and if it doesn't work, then you come back and redo it as well. So I think there is some you can make a case that this has been identified as a serious and important problem, and we're going to attack it from a number of different angles. Thank you.
We're not likely to try putting a parking space in front of somebody's house and then take it out. I mean, I think we should decide one way or the other on that. Joe, what do you think?
I mean, for 7 years, I've been in the camp of there's plenty of parking. It's a convenience parking, like the gentleman that rather just left. So I don't think I'm going to change my mind on that. I do think, though, that if we're looking at a study, again, I can tell you I would agree with most all the people here. But Taylor, if you can confirm what the study would do, would we be looking at other things for example, like the lot that the public lot that we have, for example. Like, so if we take the study and let's say that there's probably not a lot of consensus here to put parking in front of Friends Park or Hazel or make that whole area worse. But what would the study, maybe for everybody here, what would that study help do in terms of identifying other things like what Dudley was saying as well? So I'm saying, is it worth doing the study knowing we're probably not going to go that route, but we might incorporate some of the things Dudley said and some of the other things that came up today?
I think that this study that we're talking about right now is really specifically geared towards studying those specific 5 or 6 locations that have been identified as potentially accommodating new on-street parking. That would be the intent of that study. That would include looking at traffic patterns, looking at engineering, sight lines, landscaping, lighting, safety, stops, all those things, including public outreach. That was the intent of the work item in the action plan, which was the new one for this month, was really targeted to those 5 or 6 areas. And would those new potential newly installed parking spaces be feasible? I think there are other things in this study that are on the table right now which involve continuing to look at ways to make our existing parking enforcement turnover, making sure that the 2-hour parking versus the 15-minute parking and the ADA locations and accessibility and things like that, which I believe Trustee Onderdonk is referring more towards that direction. There are a number of other items and action items in the study that point in that direction. I think that the item under discussion right now is really targeted study to those particular parking spaces. The board could direct staff to remove some of those areas from that study. Those studies would, they'd be staff time. There might be some engineering analysis that's done. Landscape architect at Tesca might be, Tesca did this study for us. It might be continuation in that direction. That's what would be involved in those specific targeted location studies.
Joe, I'm just trying to count votes here. Are you in favor of striking from the study A, B, and C?
Yes.
Okay. Gary is in favor of that. That's 2. 3. Hillary. It's done. Okay. You should stick around for us to vote so you don't get bushwhacked when we secretly at night stab you in the back. Village Attorney Elrod has suggested
there's 2 approaches.
Okay. So one approach is to try to say we're going to go forward with the study without A, B, and C. Another approach is to say approve the study and have a second vote to remove A, B, and C. And I would recommend whatever you recommend.
Well, no, I think you did a straw vote, so I think you know the answer. So the proper procedure would have been to make a motion to approve the study as posted on the agenda as recommended, and then see if there's a motion to amend that main motion to eliminate the 3. I think you can avoid that rather complicated procedure and go straight to it. If somebody wants to make a motion to approve the study with study areas A, B, and C eliminated, that could be the motion.
I would invite.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Let's have a roll call, please.
Trustee Hallwax.
Confirming, I am voting to approve the motion with A, B, and C removed.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos.
Yes.
Trustee Onderdonk.
I'll abstain.
Trustee Rosenblatt.
Yes.
Trustee Rubin.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
The motion carries. We don't do that. An exercise in civics. We listen to you, and the only thing I'll say is I don't want to apologize for our notice because you're all here, and nothing would have happened for years if we decided to go forward with this. But thank you for coming. We pay attention. We care what our residents think. At the next time we talk about parking, all the people from West Glencoe are going to be in here saying, I can't park uptown. What are you clowns doing? Thank you, everybody. We actually have more on agenda. If you're really interested in civics, you could stick around, but I'll bet you don't.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda is consideration of a resolution approving change order number 5 with W.B. Olson for IT and security scope inclusion under the prime contract with W.B. Olson, Inc. for construction management for the construction of the Glencoe Golf Club project in an amount not to exceed $120,845. And I'll ask Public Works Director Monica Sarna to present. And this time I didn't almost forget.
Thank you, Village President and members of the board. This is for the construction of the clubhouse. This is the change order number 5 with our construction manager, W.B. Olson. The scope of this change order is for the IT and security scope inclusion. This item was budgeted and accounted for as an owner's item originally. As we were coordinating with the electrical subcontractor to W.B. Olson on a number of these items, we realized that collaboration moving forward was essential. They put together a scope of work to include this in their overall scope of work. This helps with efficiency and better coordination and ensuring that all conduit and cabling is being placed in coordination, overall collaboration. So the one item that is remaining an owner's items cost is the purchase of security cameras by the village. Those cameras will be installed and configured by village staff, but all of the cabling and conduit to those end connection points will be done through this change order. With this, we are allowing an additional 14 calendar days for the overall schedule of the project due to the additional workload. So now the substantial completion date is set for August 28th, 2026. This does not change the previously amended through change order 3 liquidated damages claims for late completion. So those remain intact starting on August 29th at $1,500 per day, and then progressing to a higher rate of $4,500 per day after the Monday after Labor Day. And I just wanted to note then we are also working on what will be change order 6, which will hopefully include some of the final construction changes. There are many items coming before us as we are rapidly approaching the end of construction. So we're kind of looking to bundle those up in a hopefully final change order coming to the board after this change order 5. But at this time, I'll take any questions.
So why does this extend it? This is primarily, is this cameras and security stuff? And this is going to take an extra 14 days?
It is all the conduit and cabling within the walls, within the building. There's also some exterior site work as well that was included that wasn't originally part of the overall responsibility and scope of our contractor or the electrical subcontractor.
Thanks for the clear presentation. Anybody have further questions about this?
I kind of have a follow-up on your question, if I could. Some things would get slowed down, like if you're poking holes in walls to put in cabling, et cetera. Obviously, you're not going to do your final paint and wallpaper or whatever it is. On the other hand, I just want to know, we don't anticipate that this is going to slow down anything else that can be done that's not more of the aesthetic type stuff that might be interfered with while we wait for these things.
No, I mean, many of these items have already been executed on or we're moving forward with in the effort to maintain our current construction schedule. And it is, I think this change order is to overall increase the efficiency of the schedule. Instead of having to coordinate 2 subcontractors, all this work is being done under one subcontractor.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the change order number 5?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Trustee Hallwax?
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos?
Yes.
Trustee Onderdonk?
Yes.
Trustee Rosenblatt?
Yes.
Trustee Rubin?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Motion carries. Change order 5 is approved. Next item is consideration of a referral to the Zoning Commission of a proposed zoning code amendment to adopt a planned development ordinance. Trustee Taylor Baxter, our Development Services Director, is going to present. Taylor.
Thank you, President Rowan. This is the first step in a 3-step process for a potential zoning code amendment to create a planned development ordinance for the village. We discussed this a little bit earlier today during Committee of the Whole, but this is coming directly from the 2024 comprehensive plan, which called for the consideration of a planned development ordinance. The Plan Commission has been discussing this since last year. They've spent quite a bit of time developing the framework for a draft ordinance, and they've turned it over to the village board and the Zoning Commission to actually create that ordinance, which would potentially be adopted into the zoning code. Again, this is a 3-step process. We're on step 1, which is initial village board review, at which point you can either deny this outright or refer it to the Zoning Commission for a public hearing. The Zoning Commission would then hold a public hearing, make a recommendation to the board, and would come back to you in step 3 for final review and a final decision. So for some background, what is a planned development ordinance? It is a regulatory tool that allows flexibility from certain zoning and development requirements for projects that provide certain design enhancements to the village through a detailed public review and approval process. So what this essentially does is a property owner or a developer can ask for flexibility from things like lot size minimum or floor area. And through a public review and approval process, they could be granted that flexibility if they can demonstrate that they are providing design enhancements that the village has established that it wants through that process. So the Plan Commission has looked at this in quite some detail. A few things they've talked about. What projects would require plan development review and which projects should be eligible for optional review. They talked about this quite a bit. There could be certain thresholds. For example, in a commercial or mixed-use project, a number of dwelling units or square footage could potentially trigger a required review. If the village really wants to take a close look at these projects that are more substantial, could have a potentially more significant impact on the village. Same thing with residential. There could be a required review if you're doing a development of a certain size. A lower level, you could, if you wanted some of this flexibility, but you're not at the level where you would require this additional review, potentially the ordinance could include a second tier where you could do an optional review, where you ask the village for certain flexibility and you say, as part of this review, I'm going to provide some of these enhancements by going through this process. The Plan Commission also talked about what design enhancements we'd be looking for. Really looking for implementing the comprehensive plan, including providing some more diverse housing types where appropriate, Green Bay Road, potentially in the business districts, things like natural resource protection. Larger subdivisions could potentially be granted flexibility on lot size, lot layout, in order to provide better stormwater management or tree protection, as opposed to our current zoning code where it's a more rigid lot size. It really limits the way you can lay out some of these larger sites. High quality, context-sensitive design, economic development opportunities, getting certain commercial spaces as part of a development where we get flexibility in return for providing these enhancements. Some development regulations that might be flexible: lot size, height, setbacks, floor area. A guide is already established in the recent comprehensive plan, especially in our business districts, where we have some pretty good recommendations for what height limits there might be, what kind of setbacks we're looking for. There could be some flexibility in this up to the guidance provided in the comprehensive plan. And then finally, we've talked about who would be responsible for this review. These would go through this process potentially as a similar review process to a special use. So there would likely be an initial review by the Plan Commission, the Zoning Commission, or some kind of combination of the both. That's something that the Zoning Commission is really going to be looking at as part of this public hearing process. The ordinance will include a detailed review process as part of that ordinance that really spells out how these projects would be reviewed by the village. Final review would fall to the village board in this process. The next steps, if you determine this is appropriate, you'd move to refer the proposed zoning code amendment to the Zoning Commission for a public hearing and a recommendation, and you can include any instructions to staff or the commission as you determine to be appropriate. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks for that presentation. At the Committee of the Whole meeting, one of the things that came up was what is the village thinking about redeveloping the Public Works Garage site. That's been something the village has been thinking about since the Public Works Garage was put in the mid-1950s. What is the relationship of the ordinance that we're considering, the proposal we're considering sending to the Zoning Commission, and the possible consideration of doing something at the Public Works Garage and sort of South Uptown area?
That project would be an excellent example of the type of project that would likely potentially even require plan development review. It's a project that would almost certainly have a significant impact on the character of downtown. It would almost certainly exceed these triggers that the Plan Commission was talking about as far as number of residential units and or commercial space. A project of that scale, and there could be other projects of similar scale in downtown and elsewhere, would likely be the type of project that the village would want to have a very close look at through a detailed review process, and have some real control over being able to provide flexibility to get what the village wants from that project in terms of really high quality design.
Okay. So I'm for taking what is this first step. Seems kind of obvious. Anyone want to comment on this? And Dudley.
Comment. There are some other state development requirements under consideration. It's probably impossible to know at this point if they would override our planned development ordinance, but we need to be aware of what's going on. But I do understand, aren't there some state parking regulations that we would not be able to adjust? Is that true or not true?
That's correct, yes. There's already been, starting on June 1st of this year, we're no longer to enforce off-street minimum parking requirements within a half mile of a transit station. So that covers a good chunk of the village. And there, as part of the recent build initiative discussions, there was some additional limits on municipal power to enforce off-street parking regulations. We don't know where that's going to head.
So we would not be able to address that issue as part of our plan development.
Let me say, a lot of the land we're talking about is village land. So I don't know the answer, and we would want to talk to our lawyers, but it seems to me the village, as the owner of the land, might be able to do something to control the development in a way that it would not if the village wasn't the owner.
That's 100% correct.
Okay, yeah, sure. Contractual relationships and that stuff.
And our proprietaries as opposed to our regulatory.
Otherwise, I support the referral.
Anybody else want to ask any questions? And if not, is there a motion to refer the planned development ordinance to the Zoning Commission for this first step?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Let's have a roll call, please.
Trustee Hallwax?
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos?
Yes.
Trustee Onderdonk?
Yes.
Trustee Rosenblatt?
Yes.
Trustee Rubin?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
The motion carries. Is there any other, we've finished with the agenda, is there any other business? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.